Welcome back to San Diego. This is the Golf Industry Show. It's 2019. I'm on the GCSAA TV live stage, presented by Lebanon Turf. I'm with my pal, Professor Brian Unruh at the University of Florida. We are talking BMPs like crazy, which of course is very near and dear to my heart. Brian, you've been at this BMP thing quite a while. How long has Florida, listen, Florida would be underwater if the oceans came up a little bit. So obviously quality water is a big issue to Florida. When did you guys start with a BMP program and where are you at today with it?
Sure, well the BMPs, so I came to Florida in January of 1996, so I just started my 24th year. And really shortly after I got there, just a few years, we started seeing kind of some regulatory issues popping up. And that kind of led us into developing our green industry BMPs, which is really more for the lawn care industry. And then in about 2003 is really where we kind of sat around the round table with our Department of Environmental Protection, some superintendents.
Right away with the regulatory people.
And said, you know, we really need to do something as it relates to golf. And so that was 2003, and we didn't really publish until about 2007. So it took about 4 years to kind of going back and forth to get this thing in press.
Golf's a big part of the economy in Florida.
It's huge.
It's huge. And so that gets everybody's attention, and that's why I think we've learned a lot from sort of the things you've done, because it's an economic force down in Florida. The regulatory people are paying attention to it, and golf has the same perception probably in Florida that it does. So having this document worked out to be pretty good. So it's 2007, you publish it. Now you're the only state with a certification program.
So we went, you know, so 2007 we were published, and then it just kind of sat there. And then really it was 2012 that we brought the certification program on board. And that really was a Florida Golf Course Superintendents Association driven endeavor. And so that certification program, basically there's a full day of education, and then there's a 3-part test that, and it's not just superintendents, it's assistant superintendents, it's vendor reps, whoever really wants to come and set through it. And so they get the certification, and that certification is good for 4 years. And so we're the only state in the nation that at present has a certification program.
So in an ideal world, certification would ensure uptake of BMPs. It seems you've taken a graduate student on to look at this particular issue. You want to describe that project for a minute? So
let's give a little background on this. This graduate student is actually Mark Can, and Mark he actually works for the University of Florida now. He's one of our research coordinators. But prior to that, he was a golf course superintendent, and he actually served as president of the Florida Golf Course Superintendents Association. And so he was really instrumental in that 2011, 2012 decision to bring the certification program about.
Excellent.
Fast forward a few years, he's now, you know, we just haven't seen kind of that level of adoption that we think we need.
Right.
You know, 1,100, 1,200, I don't know how many golf courses we have in Florida. So we have all these golf courses in Florida, and so trying to understand, get to the bottom, why did some people adopt these things early on? Why are there those that haven't even adopted? So literally today, at about 1 o'clock, an email was sent out to the Florida golf industry saying, hey, in a week from now, you're going to be getting a link to a survey, and it's going to really try to help us try to understand what are those barriers to adoption. Why are superintendents not embracing this thing, especially in a state like Florida, where we have 107 local fertilizer ordinances. We only have 67 counties, but 107 ordinances. And so, you know, this is in the news nonstop. And so, but yet we still kind of see there's those early adopters and the innovators, but then there's that other side of the curve as well, where we're just not seeing kind of that penetration that we really think we need to have.
And even though you've built an education program around it, and of course you from your expertise were able to provide that leadership to the GCSAA's version of the BMP, you're starting to see this happen in other states. Have you seen anything happen in other states that reminds you of what you went through in Florida, the way other states are adopting this?
Sure.
Because you've been doing webinars and interacting with a lot of people about it.
So in 2015, when GCSAA put this request for proposals out to come along and work with them to develop the BMP program. I kind of envision this thing. I go back to Grand Cypress, in Orlando or Lake Buena Vista, Florida, where we were sitting around that round table, scratching our heads saying, how do you put together a BMP? And so the planning guide, there's a planning guide and template. The planning guide is kind of those steps that everybody needs to take, to bring, with the ultimate goal of getting all 50 states online by 2020. And so, again, you've got those early adopters, those that have just, jumped on there, Maryland and Nebraska and Georgia and some of those. But, all 50 states are really in motion right now. Some are ahead of others. And that's kind of our, that's phase one.
Yeah.
And in phase two is really where once the state has a BMP in place, then the individual superintendent logs into, as you call it, the TurboTax of BMPs.
Right. That's exactly right.
And they clone their state document and then build their facility level tool. And with
that's
the ultimate,
going to make it easier. I got to believe that's going to make it easier.
So yesterday here at the Golf Industry Show, we did a 4-hour session yesterday afternoon where I kind of opened the hood so folks could look in to the BMP tool and realize that literally within a few mouse clicks, we had cloned a state document and we had made it a facility level document. And then you can go in and, if you got a foot on the snow on the ground, you can sit there in the winter. Or I tell my Florida guys in the heat of the summer when they don't want to be out there.
That's exactly right.
Then they can, pull this thing up and start personalizing it and making it specific to the facility that they're at.
It's so timely that you're able to do this because the environmental issues like blue-green algae and red tide that might be hitting Florida, having these BMPs in place and adopted and codified at your facility, I wonder when these issues come up, if people start looking at golf courses, have these issues impacted golf courses?
Sure. So we think about, in chemistry you have a reaction, and there's a catalyst to the reaction that speeds that reaction forward.
Right.
And the catalyst in many states, because I've visited with superintendents around the country, and they said, well, we just don't have these issues in our state. And I'm like, whoa, hang on. I said, you need a catalyst. And what will happen, it ultimately kind of pushes these burdensome regulations down is some catalyst. And in Florida, we're dealing with this right now. Yesterday, there was a pretty high-level meeting in Naples, Florida, dealing with fertilizer use on golf courses. And if those ordinances go the same way the other 107 have gone, where golf has basically been kind of excluded from these, it could be a real problem. So our catalyst in Florida right now is, and most everybody in the news is aware, of our red tide issues last year and the blue-green algae. None of those things have anything to do with golf course management.
Not likely.
I mean, when you have a hurricane blow in the state and flip the bottom of the lake Okeechobee upside down and just disperse all of these nutrient,
that would happen?
So
that's right. When the winds came through with that hurricane, it turned the lake upside down?
And so all that, so 25 years worth of agricultural BMPs that had been in place, that kind of the stuff from ancient had kind of settled, and then it just got churned up.
Oh.
And so the catalyst is now, we went through an election year, and so this was just big news. When you see, millions of pounds of dead fish up and down the coast, it's pretty hard to, sit in a meeting and try to defend your actions when somebody's holding pictures of dead fish.
Wow. So did this have an immediate impact on you guys, or did the BMP serve like a little bit of a shield?
Well, time will tell.
Okay.
And so yesterday in that meeting, there was discussion about these BMPs and the fact that this aspect of the industry, the golf course management industry, is very proactive. We have this BMP program, we have a certification program, and we're doing our part. Now, there's many variables in this, from septic tanks and just pollutant discharge and just, so there's lots of variables in play. And the regulators have to go in and just say, we know through modeling what are the sources of pollutants. And then they have to make sure that the various contributors to that pollution are doing their part. And so I think the BMP allows the Florida golf course industry and other industry, other golf industries to say, we're doing our part and help check that box.
It sounds like you better have that facility thing in place, right? It's one thing to have it at the state level, but you better have some idea you're implementing it at your facility. And I guess, we'll wrap up and start to think about wrapping up. And I'm thinking that one of the things on my mind is you've been doing a lot of training. You've been the face of this really for the GCSAA, the document, now the tool. What would be something you'd say would be one of the barriers for uptake? Have you sort of seen people try to do it? you're going to study what the barriers are. If you had to have a hypothesis about what some of these barriers are, what are they?
I think there's a lot. I think for one, every golf course superintendent I know is an extremely busy individual.
Yeah. So time is a big one.
Time's huge. And I think that's where, when people open this tool up and realize, as you say, it's the TurboTax of BMPs, we've put it all right there. It's just a matter of getting in and spending some time, not necessarily a lot of time, but getting in and working through that. I think there's some folks that are still maybe a little bit in denial, where
even in Florida,
where it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. I don't have anybody banging on my door at the moment. I'll get to it when I get to it.
Right.
But that catalyst thing kicks in, and then, as we say, the pucker factor goes up in a hurry.
That's right.
And so
once there's a catalyst, that sort of changes the equation a little bit. They are not taking the time. Is there a sense that they're not aware? I mean, I don't want to say denial. I would find it hard to believe that they're not aware of the steps we have to take for water quality protection.
I think there is some of, and it's just a matter of connecting some dots. Okay, so when we're in these training and we talk about water quality sampling,
right?
Many superintendents have heard of water quality sampling. Few are probably actually doing it.
Right.
But it's data, and data drives decisions. And if you don't know what you don't know,
right?
And so by having that data, and so when we're out there teaching BMPs and all that, and the fact that you really ought to establish some benchmarks on your water, on your facility, and then maintain, monitor that over time, so that when somebody does come knocking on the door and they're blaming you for water, you can say, well, here's the data.
Nutrient management plans, to me, I was just talking to Eric Irvin about his experience in Virginia. Are nutrient management plans required in Florida?
The nutrient management plans at present time are not required
When
in Florida.
I say that out loud to you, what do you think? I mean, what does that mean to you as a guy who's teaching BMPs? I mean, obviously nutrient management plans are part of what a BMP should be.
Sure.
And many states are enacting things just for nutrient management, right? When you say you want to have a plan for nutrient management, what do you think I'm talking about?
Well, for me, it's okay. So we're going to take this golf course, and we're going to, obviously we have greens, we have tees, we have fairways. In Florida, we have some really sensitive areas. Many of our golf courses have water. Some have mangrove swamps.
Right. Okay.
And so it's just putting together a plan. Okay, these are the sources of nutrients. These are the rates of nutrients. These are the timing of these nutrients.
Right.
Even down as simple as what type of spreader do we use to distribute the fertilizer, so that as we're getting into those sensitive areas, maybe our swath width is going down.
Right. Okay.
And then even, I think using some technology, enhanced efficiencies or slow releases and those things, and what might be best under these particular scenarios.
Right, targeted applications, the use of technology through GPS things.
Yeah.
Right, but we don't want to make it a burden. There are simple ways of doing these things as well, and I liked how you described it. How much do you need? What are you going to use? How are you going to apply it?
Yeah.
We don't have to make the BMP so complicated,
no.
But what I like about what you've done with the GCSAA and the template is there is a lot of decision making along the line that you got to work your way through. So I'm hoping that you've made it easy enough so that we can overcome the time barrier of getting these managers to bring this down to the facility level. You have your catalysts in Florida, other states have them as well. I always think nutrients are driving these things more than chemical pesticides, but there's the pesticide part of it as well. I've asked everybody, I asked Eric this question, I'm going to ask you this question. Are you hopeful? Are you hopeful that this work that you're doing is going to lead to these kinds of implementation levels we hope for?
Oh, it's been exciting, just to be, I'm privileged just to be a part of this whole process, and really to see kind of this years of work in Florida and taking it kind of to the national level. But yesterday in the workshops that we were doing, there were some aha moments, when we, as I said, opened up the hood and let people peer in there, and then literally within a few keystrokes, we had a manual. And then I showed very quickly how we can add sections or take sections away.
Right.
And people, and just the feedback that I was receiving afterwards, or just walking around saying, that looks pretty simple.
Well,
it really is.
And we're excited. How many states? Almost every state's underway.
All the states are
Do you
in
know the
motion.
numbers? You know the counts?
Oh, you're going to put me. I think there's 20 states that are coming online this year, so
Great.
2019, and then that leaves 10 states remaining that will come online in 2020.
And that was our goal.
And that's our goal.
All 50 states by 2020. And then when will the facility tool roll out?
It's out.
It's out.
I introduced it last year at the Golf Industry Show in San Antonio, and we showed it even more yesterday. But and so once the state has published the manual,
Yep.
individual superintendent logs in using their login credentials, the facility tool is immediately available. As soon as the screen pops up, they have two options. They have the national manual setting there, and then they have their state manual. Ideally, they're going to select their state manual and they clone it. And then
To their
as
facility.
soon as they set go, they now have a facility level manual modeled off of their state.
Right.
And then those various sections that are in there that have, maybe there's township requirements or, municipality or county, type things. Then they go in and tweak those things and personalize it and then add whatever content that they're already using right into the tool and hit publish.
This is enormously exciting, Brian. Thank you for leading this effort for all of us in this country getting the BMPs done. Thank you for joining me on this segment of GCSAA TV live from the Golf Industry Show here in San Diego, California. This is all brought to us by Lebanon Turf. I'm Frank Rossi. We'll be right back.